Okay, listen, we're having a good fellowship here, but we want to be time conscious and get everybody geared up and excited for our next presentation, our last presentation of the day. And I appreciate everybody hanging out with us. So we have a special keynote speaker who we had talked about coming a couple of years ago before COVID. And so he's able to do it for us, even though we're still kind of dealing with COVID. So Dan Gillison Jr. is going to present today. He is our keynote speaker. He is the CEO of NAMI National, and he came to NAMI in January of 2020, just as the pandemic was breaking out. He has a plethora of human services and business experience. And today we are going to listen to him talk about NAMI's accomplishments, the new initiatives and stories of hope. And again, we're really excited. We had talked to Dan about presenting with us a couple of years ago before COVID. He was going to come down to Lexington, but we have him this way virtually. So we're excited to have him, and he can come still visit the Bluegrass. But we're glad to have him today and finish out our series here. And we're excited to hear what he has to talk about 988 and some other new things. There's a book, lots of things. So I'm going to let Dan take over and enlighten us and tell us all about NAMI.
Melanie, thank you very much. Hopefully you can hear me okay and everyone can hear me.
Yes.
I appreciate the opportunity to be with you all, and I'm always quite taken with how our community invests so much time, not only on a daily basis, but 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And to see you all actually investing your time after what was probably a long week to do this on this Saturday is fantastic. So, you know, that is just wonderful. And we appreciate you doing that so much. To the members of NAMI Kentucky, to the board, and to all of you all, staff and volunteers, thanks for what you do. It absolutely makes a difference. I was recently, and when I say that, I'm really just in awe. I traveled out to NAMI, Alaska, and had an incredible time meeting with with NAMI Alaska and several of the affiliates, and attending another mental health summit. So, and then was just this week in Illinois and met with NAMI Illinois and several of the affiliates. So it's great to be with you all on today. And in terms of what we're doing, first of all, I'm humbled and honored to represent you. So Melanie, thank you for your leadership and your team's leadership and what you all are doing. It's not easy work. It does take all of us. So I don't know where you want me to start, if you want me to just keep going, or if you wanted to ask me some questions. I'm happy to tell you about the work we're doing in terms of, as you see in the background, the book. I'm happy to tell you a little bit about me and why I'm doing this work. So I'll take the lead from you and do what you would like for me to do.
Yes, if you would tell us a little bit about you. And we've been sending out those teasers, and there's the application or the registration form. So some people know a lot, but we still want you to tell us about you and your background and coming to NAMI, and then you can take it away with the book and 988 and all the other stuff you want to talk about.
All right.
And then we can do questions at the end.
All right. So thank you. I spent 32 years in corporate America, and it's always been an ambition of mine. Even when I was in corporate America, whenever we had anything like Christmas in April or any other volunteer opportunities in communities, I would always raise my hand and get involved. What brought me to this work, I worked first for the National Association of Counties. There's about 3,069 of them in the United States, and I visited most of them, and I was responsible for all of the programming, what we call county solutions and innovation. So health and human services programming, justice programming, and all of the community-based programming that was done in the counties, and visited a number of the jails across the United States. And I'll tell you a little bit about that later. Next, I went to work as the executive director for the American Psychiatric Association Foundation. And our role as a 501c3 was to really develop programming that could be used in the community. So we developed programming that we focused on really four things: where you live, learn, work, and worship. So was able to bring that kind of a mindset over into NAMI. I've been here now, it'll be 3 years on the 21st of January. And yes, Melody's right. I'm a virtual reality CEO. Until 2 weeks ago, I had not met my board in person. We've all been virtual. And that's not what I expected at all. I don't think that any of us expected that. It has been an adaptive learning experience. I mean, if you want to talk about resilience, all of a sudden having to, just like you and your communities, having to pivot and take your programming online and to not be able to be in the office. Think about me. I'm a new CEO. I've got to, set the tone. The organization's got to get to know me. I've got to learn from everybody that does the work. And I'm not able to meet with them in person. So it's been an incredible experience. And with that, we tried to do some things to bring the field to us virtually versus us going to them. But I've been so happy in recently being able to get on the road. Last week, we did have a board retreat. We had our research event and we had our partner day. And as a point of information, we had several of our staff, actually 5, get sick, and they were down. It was last week. So this week we had several staff members a little ill. So I would offer to you all, just be careful. And when I say self-care, I mean it. As soon as I got back from Chicago, first thing I did on Thursday afternoon at the end of the day is go and get my second booster and flu shot. So I'm not going to speak to it politically. I'm just going to speak to it from the fact that I had 5 staff members that were sick with COVID. And I want to make sure that I am not the carrier of it. So I wanted to mention that up front, self-care. So why this work was an opportunity and important to me is I lost my contemporary who I grew up with. I grew up in Northeast Washington, D.C., was the oldest in my family. I had a contemporary, my first cousin. She was born the same year. It was only the 2 boys in my family, so she was like our sister. We grew up together, same age and everything. We were the role models to set the tone for our younger siblings, and we were going to go to college, all that kind of thing. I was able to get down to Louisiana and go to college. My cousin stayed in Washington, started work, and lost her life at 26 to suicide. That impact in 1986 was a ripple effect to the family. The family never spoke about it. The stigma was tremendous. And I saw the ripple effect to the family from the standpoint of what it did to my aunt and uncle. My uncle was just the salt of the earth. He would give shirt off his back. He went into substance abuse and he died half the man he was. And he went into substance abuse after his daughter died by suicide. That ripple effect and that memory, 2022? And my mom has passed, but my dad is still alive at 88. And he's never spoken about mental health until I gave him the book. And that was about a month ago. And he's never brought up our family's mental illness, if you will. So the net is that I want to do any and everything I can to support the field and support every one of you that are touching lives. And if I could just change the outcome for any family that has experienced mental illness, I would love to be able to do it. I live in a community where, as I look past my screen, as I'm talking to you, I look across our street at my neighbor's house. And I bring that up because on the 26th of October, several years ago, my neighbor lost his life to suicide in his home. And we had just talked the day before. We had no idea. He seemed to be doing well on in all ways as we cosmetically think about it. But I saw the ripple effect on his family as well. And his son was a graduate of the Citadel, is a graduate of the Citadel, and had matriculated through the military, and just all kinds of things that you would think of as a pattern of success. And suicide just is such a situation that you want to change. You want to change it. We're seeing young people in suicidal ideation. We're seeing it on our helpline. So the net is that's just a part of our body of work, but I wanted to mention that to you. I am a father of 2 and been married 41 years. So that's a little bit about Dan. In terms of our programming and what we're doing, as I can go back, the programming and our support groups and everything that we can do in terms of outreach we're trying to do, in terms of increased programming, NAMI Frontline, sharing hope, Pathways to Hope, the FaithNet, the faith-based initiative that we did nationally this year that had an incredible turnout, and Ending the Silence 2.0. Not to replace our Ending the Silence, but when you can't do it in person. So we're trying to develop new platforms and new tools. The other thing is the book. This book, it's not about it having NAMI's name on it just from the standpoint of that. It's about spreading the word on who NAMI is. We've now sold over 17,000. And the point in fact is that we're hoping is that this will get the word out to people who traditionally may not know about NAMI. And by the way, this book is written with over 120 interviews, first-person experiences of people living with and who have thrived living with a mental illness. And this book was just kicked off on the 20th of September. And here we are on the 22nd of October, and we've already sold 17,000. The objective is to get more people to know about NAMI. And I'll share just it's all about us being able to tell stories. So I don't know if I'm good at it, but I'll share this one with you. I was at my first travel after COVID was to NAMI, Michigan. And I was so excited to be with people. And I was there in the hotel lobby, saw a woman who took her luggage up, and I'd already said hello to some other people and asked them, were they there for the conference? So as I was seeing her the second time, I asked her, was she there for the conference? And we happened to be coming down in the elevator. And she said, what conference? And I said, NAMI, Michigan. She asked me, who's NAMI? And I told her who NAMI was, and she looked up at the ceiling of the elevator, and she said, oh my gosh, I was meant to be here. And I said, I'm sorry, what do you mean? She says, I'm a visiting nurse. I'm from Pittsburgh. My daughter lives with schizophrenia. She's 25. She's been in the justice system. She's now in a home, and my husband and are now divorced. She actually walked me through a couple of the things that she's tried to do. And she said, I wish I'd known about NAMI because we were doing this by ourselves. So what I would love to do is to reduce the number of times you hear, who's NAMI? Or I wish I had known about NAMI. And I think this book will help us do that. The other thing in terms of new platforms, so the book is one of those platforms. The other thing that we're doing as a new platform is our podcast, Hope Starts With Us. And that podcast is relatively new. I think we've done maybe 8 so far, maybe 6 to 8. And the point is to use every vehicle we can to get the word out about NAMI, who we are, what we do, where we exist, and to have voices that speak to their experiences. And April Simpkins, the mother of Chesley Christ, who passed by suicide in New York, she was one of our guests. We had our first guest was Dr. Glenda Wren, who is a NAMI mom. Is navigating a mental illness with her teenage son, who gave her permission to talk about the story. And she says, even as a psychiatrist, navigating this was something new for me. So we're trying to give nuggets of information to people. The other thing that we've done is we've increased our helpline. It used to be 10 to 6. It's now 10 to 10. So we've increased the hours of our helpline by 4. The other thing that we've done with the helpline is that, the helpline was always, excuse that background noise. The helpline was always tethered to a landline and volunteers coming into the NAMI office in Arlington, Virginia. When COVID hit, think about it, we didn't have a plan to have the helpline virtual, because everything was, we give you the technology when you come into the office. You give us 4 hours of your time per day as a volunteer. We train you and we give you a phone line. And all of a sudden we now have to we have to figure out how we're going to keep the helpline. And we asked the volunteers, would they use their home phones and their home computers until we could figure it out. Took us 6 days, and we were able to stand up the helpline virtually. And we now have the phone service in the cloud, and we're now training volunteers around the country. So a helpline volunteer does not have to be located in Arlington, and they do not have to come in. They're not tethered to a phone line in the building in Arlington. So what that gives us is more bandwidth and more access to volunteers with lived experience who want to actually bring their experience to help us with the helpline. We've also created a web chat feature, SMX test capability, and there's something else I want to show you. So if you all will hang in there with me, I'm going to change my screen for a second. And just bear with me because I think this is important. Okay. Siri, I'm feeling depressed.
I'm sorry to hear that. Talking to someone might help. If you'd like, I can help you call a friend or family member, or you can find help online at NAMI.org.
Would you like me to play that again? Did everybody see that? So we're trying to use every platform. And I hope that all of you all that have and continue to put all of your energy into NAMI are proud of that. I hope you're proud of the book. I hope you're proud of the podcast. I hope you're proud of the body of work that we're bringing to the field. We're trying to increase our resources. We also see a need to partner in different communities. We know that we don't have all of the assets, and it is about trust. And it's also about capacity and bandwidth. And in some places, by the way, I apologize. I should have said that. I had a meeting with Google, I think before I left for Alaska, so that would be 3 weeks ago. And I actually showed this to them and I challenged them. And yes, we do not have that on Android yet, but they're working on it. So I want to make sure I answered that question. And my apologies, I should have done that as I mentioned this, but we can come back to that in a second. The partnerships, as I was speaking of. So in different communities, there's a trusted leader in that community. So what we're trying to do is in those communities, like with the Steve Fund, with MTV, with the Confess Project. The Confess Project, if I can speak to that for a second, and let me pause. I've been told by my wife of 41 years I go too fast sometimes. So how am I doing on my pacing? Should I slow down?
You sound good to me.
You're fine.
Sound wonderful.
Okay. All right. So what I wanted to tell you is that with the Confess Project, that is one, and by the way, this may be redundant for some of you because you may have seen the video at the NAMICon 2022. But that is a partnership that we're developing with an organization that goes into Black men's barbershops. And they train the men in the barbershop not on being behavioral health therapists, but on listening. And as they listen, they will hand them NAMI information in terms of things that they can, and we went down to Atlanta and we sat in the barbershop and we interviewed a group of men. And what was so interesting is this was a very sizable barbershop and we were in the back of the barbershop. So there was a long pathway, a lot of chairs you would pass to get to the very back. So very upscale barbershop. What we noticed is as the men were coming into the barbershop, it was almost like they dropped their armor at the door. And I listened as they sat in the different chairs and they said, well, how's your son doing? How's your nephew doing? Oh, is he this? It's like these barbers knew the family and it was a trusted relationship. So what we're doing, and this was started by a young man, Alonzo, out of Little Rock, Arkansas, and he lives with mental illness. And he saw that him talking to his barber. Harvard University has done some research on this work. And we're looking to connect with it and even move it into beauty shops. So we noticed that it is a great way to connect to community. And what we want to do is we're trying to construct and build on what you all do, which is you've constructed a tapestry, a quilt with all these different patches, the collective, all the relationships in the mental health space. And we want to do that from the national perspective and not assume that we haven't, but we want to do it even more. And these partnerships particularly in disparate communities, is critically important to move the work forward. The other thing we've done this year is young adults. We were able to put out a call, an application process for 10 young adults to work with us for 12 months with a very small stipend. And they would be working with us for 12 months to help form, I'm 65 years old. If we are really trying to change this and do early intervention, we need young people at the table. So we put out this call we had 10 seats for 12 months. In 30 days, we had to turn off the process. We got 760 applicants for 10 seats. Young people care about this. This group that we have, our young adult group, is fantastic. This administration, the current presidential administration, they had the first Young Adult Mental Health Summit at the White House. 4 of our youth ambassadors were able to attend. So NAMI was represented at that MTV White House event by 4 of our, what we call our Next Gen committee, Next Generation. Next year, we're going to have a process to bring a couple of them onto the board as ex officio members of the board. So we're really trying to build this system of engagement with our young people and making sure that it's not just them sitting in a seat, but they're informing our body of work. So, hold on to that. 760 young adults in 30 days, and they're from every sector, every demographic you can think of, and they're really making a difference. So those are some of the partnerships. The other thing we did is when COVID started, myself and a colleague I met years ago, probably 8-9 years ago, we were in a meeting in Denver, and we didn't know each other then, but we just struck it up and said at some point in time we'd get to work together. And all of a sudden COVID started, and we were having lunch right before COVID started, and we said, okay, something's going to develop for us. When COVID hit, we talked to each other and said, hey, let's see if we can get the CEOs together to meet on a Saturday. And we had 2 objectives. If we could get the CEOs of the mental health organization together on a Saturday, we wanted to see what we could do during COVID to make sure that services for those living with mental illness, SMI and mental illness, were addressed, and that we would come out of COVID differently than we went in. As a case in point, many of us remember Katrina, we remember New Orleans, we remember the levees. Well, the Corps of Engineers had been telling anyone that would listen for 10 years before Katrina that if a Cat 5 storm hits New Orleans, these levees won't hold. Well, what have all of us that have been in this space heard before COVID? It's like COVID has been so present and so in our mind, but what were we saying before COVID? Fragmented mental health system. So I would challenge us, and I challenge the CEOs, my colleagues, to say, if it was fragmented before COVID, what do you think it will be coming out of COVID if we don't do something? And we won't be able to make change immediately, but we've got to start talking collectively versus competitively. So I'm less about conflict and competition and more about coalition building and collaboration. And that was the challenge here. So we started meeting every Saturday for 1 hour. So think about it, because during COVID, many of these CEOs, from the National Council, Chuck Ngolia, to Patrick Kennedy at the Kennedy Forum, to both of the APAs, American Psychological, American Psychiatric, we were working some long hours. And then for them to give up time on a Saturday, we promised them no media, and that it was just a collective of us talking about what could we do. So if I could share with you, we came up with a unified vision. And that unified vision is 7 pathways for success. The first one, early identification and prevention. That's because 50% of mental illness begins by age 14 and 75% by the time the brain finishes developing in the mid-20s. Emergency and crisis response, and I'll talk about 988 in a minute. Equity. We must address the social, political constructs and historical systematic injustices. The next one, integration. There is no health without mental health. Care integration not only facilitates better and earlier care, it reduces stigma and decreases barriers to accessing care early, effectively, and efficiently. Parity, coverage and funding drives health system behavior. Coverage and funding drives health system behavior. I've had surgery on each one of my knees. When I went to have the surgery on the knees, or even to call the appointment set up, Mr. Gillison, what insurance do you have? They bet the insurance before they even give you the appointment. But the point is that the insurance was there, and it was like, Mr. Gillison, when would you like an appointment? We don't have the same with mental illness, and we need to challenge the industry to change that. Standards, we must hold systems accountable. So I've given you 5 up to parity. The next one is standards. We must hold standards accountable to evidence-based standards of care that improve outcomes and quality of life. And the last one is workforce. We must increase the number and diversity of mental health and substance use disorder providers. We are shouting everywhere we can that the workforce is an issue. The workforce is absolutely an issue in every part of mental health. You know, as we bring new young people in the door, who's watching the back door? How are we celebrating the caregivers that are in the space? How are we making sure that we're keeping them whole? How do we make sure that they know that we care? And it's you know, pay is a big part of that. Pay is a huge part of that. So we're trying to do some things where we can to be a part of the new narrative. And the biggest thing is that, you know, we are looked at nationally as, you know, we're the largest grassroots organization, yes. And what that means is that the lived experience that we have and we bring to the table in all the conversations locally, statewide, and nationally actually can really alter the outcomes. So that's a little bit about what we're doing. There's much more that I could talk to. 988, we created something this year called the Reimagine Crisis Response. We now have 45 partners for that. Reimagine Crisis Response. This is a once in a lifetime. Let's think about it. The National Suicide Prevention hotline, 10-digit number. That's what it's been. It's managed by Vibrant on behalf of SAMHSA. I would challenge many of us, and there's someone in this meeting that probably know that number by heart. I could never transfer it to memory, but I could transfer 988. The benefit of 988 is that it is both for suicide prevention and mental health crisis response. Remember, the 10-digit number was just for national suicide. It had never been marketed or labeled that it was both and. 988 is marketed and labeled both and, mental health crisis or suicide prevention, or suicide prevention. The other part that comes with 988 is a whole infrastructure. Having certified crisis counselors that answer the phone, to have a mobile crisis team to respond if that certified crisis counselor cannot de-escalate the person that's decompensating. If a mobile crisis team responds, the other part of that is making sure that that's hopefully a triage team of a social worker, a psychologist, and or a law enforcement person, or some other, or a certified peer counselor. Let's remember them. But a triage team of trained folks that actually do this work. And then if they were to respond to my house and I had a loved one that was in a mental health crisis, the whole reason for me calling them is that I care about my loved one and I want them to have a safe encounter. So they have to pick up my loved one, but they have to have somewhere to take them. The other challenge here is that we don't have enough crisis stabilization centers. And the crisis stabilization centers is a huge area of opportunity. And by the way, and I'll call you team because I think we're all on the same team. If we look around our communities, there's a lot of brick and mortar everywhere that's vacant. It used to be occupied because that's the way we used to work. We're now working very differently. So wouldn't it be great if all the communities said, you know, I'm going to repurpose that building and turn it into a crisis stabilization center. We're going to gut that building and make it a crisis stabilization center, because that's in addition to the workforce that we've got to develop for responding, for supporting, we also need these crisis stabilization centers and you know, living room like environments that we can take someone who's decompensating, and we can help them. So that's the work that we're doing. We're a few months in on 988. We're excited about what it can become, but we know that there's a lot more that has to be done. The Reimagined Crisis Response actually got a national award for its marketing and advertising campaign with the language there. The other thing we've done is we created a webinar series called Help Not Handcuffs. What we know is our people that if someone that is in a mental health crisis, if they go into the justice system, it's very hard to pivot them back into the mental health system. I've been to the jails, and I'll mention that in a minute, but we know that our people need help, not handcuffs. And so we created a series that started with a film, a documentary, The Definition of Insanity, from Miami-Dade County and Judge Steve Leifman. And really the label of it, Definition of Insanity. If we do what we've always done, we're going to get what we always got. I've been to Cook County 3 times. I've been to the Twin Towers in LA. I've been to Shelby County Jail. I've been to Coconino County Jail. I've been to a lot of jails. I won't label them, but I had different experiences at each one of them. But the one common denominator was seeing those that were there because they had a mental illness. And the sheriffs would tell me they're only here because of their mental illness. And they committed this crime. There were some that were there. Recidivism is also a big part of that because it's, 3 hots in a cot, if you will. I will get fed and I'll get a cot to sleep on. So I'm going to go and steal something out of the 7-Eleven. I'm going to be a vagrant sitting on the side of the street. From Sheriff Tom Dart in Chicago to the sheriff in LA to all the other locations, those living with mental illness that are in our jails, they need to be in a mental health facility, and our jails have become the ipso facto new mental health hospitals. My last 2 things I'll say about that: when I was at Coconino County, the sheriff said, "Dan, come on, let's go." And I'd asked for a tour. He said, "Okay, let's go." He had created a military pod, and in that pod, he had Marines here, Coast Guard here, Navy here, Air Force here, and I'm trying to think if I've missed any branch. Air Force, Coast Guard, Navy, Army, and Marines. They were all there. They all had their flags up. And I asked the sheriff, he said, "Dan, look around. Most of these are all young men that have served in the war." And I'm not a mental health professional. I think some of them have TBI, traumatic brain injury. Many of them are living with anxiety and depression, and they come back and they've broken the law in my county. So I got to bring them in and put them here, but they don't need to be here. The other part is that peer to peer, the reason we have Coast Guard with Coast Guard is because they were taught a certain credo and they will help each other. And what I've done, Dan, is I've assigned a leader from Marines to be the mentor for the other Marines that are here, Army, Air Force, Navy, Coast Guard. So I sat down and met with every one of the leaders and asked them about their experience and what they were doing. And I would just tell you that there's so much that we can do for our veterans. And I'm just so pleased that NAMI is there to support them. Cook County, last visit, I went to the women's jail first and spent half a day there. As I was leaving, one of the women asked me, was I going to the men's side in the afternoon? And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." And she said, "Would you do me a favor?" And I said, if I can, I will. And they teach you when you visit the jails that you have to, be careful with committing. So I said, "If I can, I will." And she said, "Well, would you do me a favor and tell my son I said hello?" So there were 2 generations. So whether that be mental illness, vicarious trauma, or whatever, we had a mother and a son, adult son, in the Cook County Jail. I would just venture to say that we need to figure out ways to help people get help, not handcuffs. So I've talked a lot. I've talked a lot about partnerships. We also want to try and do work with the Divine Nine and our sororities and fraternities, as well as HBCUs. I guess 2 months ago now. It's been a lot of airports, but I went down to Baton Rouge to visit Southern University. You know of the 4 young ladies that you've probably seen the news. The first one that was national news was the was the soccer goalie from Stanford. She was 4 months from graduating and she passed by suicide. There was a young lady, a cross-country athlete at the University of Wisconsin who passed by suicide. Then there was a young lady from James Madison University who was a softball athlete. She hit a home run and 2 doubles on a Monday. She passed by suicide on that Wednesday. And then there was the cheerleader at Southern University in Baton Rouge. She passed by suicide. Now, the cheerleader had actually put out on social media, she put some language out on social media in advance, and her friends saw it and they called the campus police. And the thing for them is that they need support because they were not able to help their friend, and she passed by suicide. So we're trying to do what we can for university students as well. We're working and partnering with the JED Foundation on some of the work that they're doing. And I was just on a call yesterday with their chairman, their founder, to see if we could do something unique for a university. So that's a little bit about what we're doing. Unified vision, strategic partnerships, Divine Nine, new platforms to communicate out, the helpline, the book. And I just love this book because it's written from first-person experiences. And I was just with a group of chief human resource officers. And what I've done with the book, so that you all know, is that I say, listen, there's 160 of you all in the room. You're giving up your time to be here at this conference. But when you get back, you're going to be back on that treadmill. You're going to be back on that hamster wheel. And you'll say, hey, he told me about this book. So I just want to take a pause and tell you a few of the chapters, the title in the book, and maybe that will whet your appetite. So the first part is mental health and mental health conditions. And these are the first 7 chapters. Do I need help? The paradox of diagnosis. How do I find help? Minding the many gaps. Pathways to recovery. First steps. 5th chapter, added complexity, co-occurring substance use conditions. The next chapter, the impact of trauma. The last chapter in the first part of the book, helping your child, teen, or young adult. So as I've done that and teed that up in different audiences I've been in, it's almost no way that they're not interested in the book. And it's also not NAMI's solutions. The way Ken wrote this, even on page 11 at the very beginning of the book, guess what? We talk about Mental Health America and their screening tools. In the book, we talk about DBSA. We talk about a number of different organizations and their assets that they have. In the back of the book, what's unique here, in addition to first-person experiences from people with lived experience, is that for every chapter, what Ken has done is he has put other books as references and organizations. So for Do I Need Help? Organizations, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, Bring Change to Mind, Depression and Bipolar Support. So he lists the organizations, books, and then other resources. So for each chapter in this book, he's given other organizations, books, and other resources. So this is really a who's who. And I hope you'll spread the word on it, because I'd like to change that outcome for that mother in Michigan that said, I wish I'd known about NAMI sooner. So I'll stop there. I'm proud to represent you all. I'm humbled to represent you. I hope I do it well. Wherever I don't do it well, I'm at dgillison@nami.org. I've got a thick skin, so you guys just have to tell me. And I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you. That was a really good presentation. And we are in alignment with NAMI National. We've been doing a lot of things that you were talking about. We're small, we're not huge, like some of the affiliates are across the United States, but we're small, we're powerful. So
small but mighty.
Yes. All right. Well, NAMI Kentuckians, what questions? You could put them in the chat or comments. I'll tell you a couple of comments. I just met Jayla. She's with Central State. That's out of Ohio. So we partner, and people from Ohio come to our conferences, and we do a lot of cross trainings. So she said we'd love to have the NAMI book, and they're starting a Central State NAMI on campus, and we're going to talk. Jayla and I are going to talk a little bit. And then Bryson said he loved the where you all did the talks in the barbershops and the beauty salons. And Bryson does. He's one of our new Sharing Hope ambassadors, and he also is a NAMI Connections facilitator and a youth and he's been doing a podcast, him and another young lady that took Sharing Hope and working with the African American community. They do that on Facebook. So that's Mr. Bryson Jones. And then there's Yolanda. She said, this is awesome. She's our Sharing Hope coordinator. So she coordinates all of our trainings and gets all of our people in applications. So yes. So are there any other questions? She said, you mentioned the post on social media as a warning that is becoming a bigger issue recently. How are you looking to the future to help on major networks?
Thank you. Could Rhonda explain that a little bit more?
So I'm on social media a lot. I've worked in social media for over a decade, to share my age. But since before it was cool, let's put it that way. Recently in years, because I noticed the trends because I've been here so long, I've seen a lot more of, like you mentioned, that student who had posted online and then died by suicide, but no one could help her. There are some things on some of the major social media sites to where you can report that, and they have some offers to send you help, or they send you the numbers, but it's not really as productive as it could be. So what is NAMI National looking at to future help with some of these large social media companies and the ones that are up and coming, like TikTok, who don't have all those resources?
Yeah, well, thank you. We work very closely with Google, and we do some analytics with Google, and it's all behind the firewall, so nobody knows, but we're working with Google. We have met with Meta, which was Facebook. So a lot of times, Rhonda, it's reactive. We want to be proactive, but you're reacting to the situation after it's occurred. But we are in conversations with them, and we want to be more, and with TikTok to be more, Instagram, IG, to be more proactive versus reactive. So and to be honest with you, we're not having to force out, we're not having to kick the door in. Every now and then we do, but also, you know, they ask us what we think. So we try to build on those relationships. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do with Meta and with TikTok and others. It's you know, it's fluid. You, having done it for 10 years, you know, the peer pressure of what our young people are dealing with social media, and it's almost the moment you type, you know, or do a quick video, it's too late. It's very tough because it's, you know, it's a moment in time, and it's time stamped, and unless you have a volume of staff at Meta, Facebook, and at TikTok that are, and Google, all the different platforms, if you will, because Google owns Instagram and some others. But if they're not looking at it, where someone is looking at it, it's like, how do you take it down immediately? You got to have a artificial AI, and you got to have that algorithm that sees some keywords and can shut it down. So we're trying to help them with the keywords, and we're doing that as well. So thank you. That's a great question. I also forgot to mention something to you all, and that is that we were vetted by McKinsey Scott for the last 4 months, and it was just announced that McKinsey Scott was awarding us $30 million. So I believe all of you know that, because we put it out on the media. But you know, for first of all, McKinsey Scott has a philanthropic arm that does the vetting, and they are very stringent in terms of their review. They met with me twice confidentially at the very beginning, and then they went and looked at all of our financials and what we were doing, our leadership team, what the field was doing, and this is the result. I see something from Eric. From the Divine Nine, we want to create partnerships with the Divine Nine, from the Sigmas to the Alphas to the Omegas to the Deltas to the AKAs, Z5B. I'm trying to think of all the sororities, and not just. Well, we want to say, do you know what the Divine Nine is for our total audience? Divine Nine is a group of sororities and fraternities that are across the United States that make up 2.5 million Americans. These are folks that from undergraduate to graduate to doctoral programs are your leaders in justice, medicine, business, education, you name a sector, and they're in that sector. And the Divine Nine, again, represents 2.5, but they also represent families in communities. And we know that independent of NAMI, many of them are focused as one of their initiatives, mental health. And we see the opportunity to work with them. And they also have, they have people within their organizations, and they have volunteer work that they do, but we'd love to put them to work for us. So we'd love to reach out. We're in touch with the president or I think it's the Bacillus of Omega Psi Phi. We've been talking to, and there's some work that we're doing with a couple of the sororities that you hear about soon, one for sure. And what we'll have with that sorority is a 3-year partnership. And when they walk their walks, they will be donating proceeds from their walks to NAMI, the local NAMI'S, and to St. Jude is what the process will be. They will divide up the proceeds is what we hear. Now, we don't have the final MOU yet, so it's a work in progress, but that's the kind of relationship we're trying to build with the Divine Nine. You know, when you talk about the Alphas, you're talking about Thurgood Marshall, you're talking about Dr. Martin Luther King, you're talking about some others that are part of that organization, and there's some others. Dr. Dorothy Height was the president of the National Council of Negro Women. She was a Delta, and just was very profound in her work and working with every president's administration going back, I think, about 40, 50 years. So the net is there's some opportunity there. Yep, the Pan-Atlantic Council. Yep. Thank you, Angela, for yep, and the nickname Divine Nine, right?
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
We support you.
Yes, yeah, so thank you for putting that out there. It's the National Pan-Atlantic Council, but we're picking them off one at a time. We'd love to be able to actually do a collective just with the Pan-Atlantic Council, but if they don't have the vote and the concurrence of the actual national offices, so we're trying to push from the bottom up and from the top down.
Okay, are there other questions or comments? I know Jayla said that the NAMI on campus there at Central State's going to be doing some TikToks beginning in November.
I don't really have like a question, Melanie. I just want to say that to you, Mr. Gillity, I just want to say you're really an inspiration to me as being a minority, trying to really impact the world in many ways. And really, you know, mental health, I've been with NAMI now for a year and a half. And I think for you to really be able to be doing everything for the communities, I think is amazing. You know, I really look up to somebody like you. And I think it's just, I just wanted to give you your kudos. I have such a passion for mental health as well as suicide prevention. So I try to do it more on the local side in Louisville, Kentucky, and Melanie and Rhonda both know how much this is a passion for mine. And I know that I'm just going to keep growing and growing to do more and more things in the communities. So I just wanted to say that for you.
Hey, thank you for sharing that. This work is impactful. It's you know, Bryson. It's Bryson, right?
It is, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Bryson. Thank you, because you know, many of us do this work, and it's every now and then the hours seem to be overwhelming, and the work is right on your windshield. So hearing this is very supportive and motivating. So thank you. And more important, thank you for what you're doing, and keep growing and keep using your voice because your voice matters much more than mine, and you'll be able to impact more lives than I will. So, you know, keep doing what you're doing.
Mr. Gillison, I just wanted to say thank you. NAMI Kentucky is just amazing. And I've had the pleasure of working with Miss Melanie for the last year, but I'm a Kentucky native who now lives in Ohio. So she has just, you know, opened up these trainings for people to come from across the country. And our Sharing Hope program is ready to soar, but we need you to send some more grants down this way.
All right. All right. Hey,
We
you put it out
We
there.
need that.
Okay. All right.
Because
I hear
we've
you.
got, we've got these amazing programs, but we're limited on our funding. And we have already trained 27 people through NAMI Kentucky to do Sharing Hope alone. And I'm thankful because way before you ever thought about coming to NAMI, I was part of NAMI back in the day when we had the first initiative. And so that's why she reached out to me, because it is my passion as well. So I have actually been a member of NAMI since 2006, and it truly has changed my life. And I hope that I'm helping to change other people's as I share my testimony of how NAMI has helped me, bless my family. And it is just a joy and an honor to meet you, sir.
Well,
And you
the
got to
joy
come
is
down
mine.
to you got to come down to God's country. That's what we call Kentucky.
I got to get there. You know, I've flown into Cincinnati before, but I've not had the opportunity to actually be in Kentucky. So I got to get.
Well,
to Kentucky.
I can always meet you at the airport and drive you down.
That'd be wonderful. Yep. I got to get there. I do want to get to Kentucky.
Thank
you.
Sir.
And you know, this organization started almost 43 years ago in 1979 in Madison, Wisconsin, by a couple of moms. So there's no greater advocate than our mothers, and there's no greater advocacy organization than NAMI. And the fathers that are involved, and the uncles that are involved, and the grandparents involved. But I will always remember who started it, how it started, and how it has manifested itself and matriculated to what it is now. And I want to make sure I give all kudos to the founders and to all of you all. And the legacy of your work from 2006 to now is critically important to me. And I want to make sure that in every audience that I'm in, that I'm building on your work and standing with you and kind of on your shoulders, if you will, because, you know, there's a saying that I often mention. I love this organization because of how much we care. And there's something I learned years ago that you've probably heard. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I will tell you that there's nobody at NAMI that doesn't care. So that's us. And by the way, the other one that I speak to is an African proverb, is the one that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So we go together and we care. So I get chills when I talk about NAMI. Now my private sector experience, I will tell you, my private sector experience has me want to do things faster. And I am learning that I have to slow down. But I grew up in a body of work that it was private sector is about business, and it's about shareholder value, and it's about revenue, and it's not what did you do for me yesterday. It's about, okay, that's history. What are you gonna do today? So I'm doing a lot with I'm trying to bring all those skills and competencies and all that learning to the work, but also be respectful of the work and the space.
Thank you so much. And there's still more comments. Jayla says, can you do a talk at Central State?
The answer is yes.
So we'll put you in touch.
All right. The answer is yes. I will talk to, well, first of all, thank you for the question and the opportunity. But the answer is yes, Jayla. Yep. I'd be honored.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? Any more comments? What about the conference next year? I've been in NAMI 5 years. I haven't been able to attend one. So where's NAMI National thinking about having their conference for 2022? All right.
So since you have me today, and we just had a special board meeting on yesterday, our conference was to have been, I'm going to give you when it is, but it was to have been in August in Washington, D.C. Three things are happening during that time. One, heat and humidity. Two, nobody being on the Hill. And 3, it's the same time as the International Crisis Intervention Training Conference. And we don't want to conflict with that conference. So we're biting the bullet, and we're moving the conference to May, and it's going to be in Minneapolis. It'll be in Minneapolis in May, and it'll be, I think, the 24th through the 28th. We'll be announcing it this coming week, but it will be. We just got the budget approved in our meeting with the board last night, so it hasn't been announced. So I'll be signing the contract this week. So you're hearing it first. Pack your bags.
I'm gonna say you heard it first at Kentucky.
There you go. And there it is. It's going to be, yep. And we're really trying to, this will be our first, well, by the way, team, I've never been to an in-person NAMI convention. The conventions that I've participated in to date have been virtual. I can't wait to be at an in-person convention. So this will be my first one, and I'm challenging the team, the project team that's doing it. We have a consultant working with us to make it innovative, to make it creative, to make it where everybody gets a transfer of something they can take back to their community. And I'm challenging our team to do that.
Hey, we're gonna try to see if we can get a group of NAMI Kentuckians there.
Yes, and we know that we're competing also with some of our affiliates, NAMI Walks. You know, one of the other things I've learned is as we all know, you can't please everyone. You're going to run into different issues. So I just want to say that if there's any affiliates where we're doing this at the time of your walk, I'll take that hit, and I apologize in advance. But as we looked at the calendar, this is what was available to us. And we apologize in advance. I apologize. I'll take that hit. But we didn't have any options as we looked at the calendar. So this is when we're doing it.
Hey.
Well, there's none. I want to thank you all. I'll get out of the way. I appreciate the investment you're making, and to your sponsors that really make this possible for you to be able to do. Fantastic. To all of the dads who are doing this, fantastic. We need more of you. All the men that are doing this, we need more of you. So please continue your investment and bring a buddy with you. And to all of you all, thanks for what you're doing. Remember, hope starts with us.